We're going to have to forego the Q&A, but please talk with Harshul and Marcelo during lunch to ask your questions, because we have to, we're a little bit behind, and we'd like the next group to come up. And Alexis and Roland.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexis, and I'm part of the Inclusive Business team at IFC. And this is Roland, who is part of the Development Impact Unit. So this morning, we just wanted to share with you a little bit about a pilot that our two departments are doing, along with ECOM, who you heard from earlier this morning. And it's basically, we're doing a pilot to measure ECOM's impact and reach at the base of the pyramid. So we'll go through some of the findings at a high level in a moment, just to share with you some of the insights that we've been gathering through this pilot. It's the first pilot that we've done of this type, and we're embarking on others, including with Water Health International, and we see some applicability across various sectors within IFC and various inclusive business clients. So at a sort of a high level, there were two parts to this project. One is to actually measure ECOM's BOP reach. So the extent to which ECOM is reaching the base of the pyramid, which we define as $8 a day, through their farmer supply chain. And then secondly, to understand the insights of the customers that they're reaching. So what services do they value and why, and how does it influence their perspective of the relationship with ECOM, as well as ECOM's impact on their lives. So why did we decide to engage in this, this pilot? I guess first of all, we saw a lot of potential value for tools such as this to help our clients understand the income levels of the populations that they're working with, either on the supply side or on the customer side. And secondly, we felt that this information would also provide greater insights on the population. So not just understanding the income level, but really understanding the value proposition that companies are offering. So that's one key objective, or sort of value proposition for IFC, helping us help our clients sustain their inclusive business models. And then secondly, we'll actually show some data in a moment, but it actually enables us to measure and then articulate our clients' BOP reach to internal and external stakeholders, which is important for us as we continue to make the argument around supporting our clients, helping us have a development impact. Okay, so in this pilot, we tested two tools. We implemented two surveys. One is what we call a simple poverty scorecard. It's an easy-to-use 10-question questionnaire with very basic questions, mostly multiple choice. Questions such as, how many household members are there? How many of your household members between ages 7 and 12 are enrolled in school? Some questions around the inside of the house and the type of floor of the residence, type of, in some countries, type of refrigerator, in other countries, whether or not they have a radio or a tape player in the house. These surveys are constructed based on household survey data and then tailored to each country. And basically, we fielded this survey with about 1,000 farmers and their families. Each question, I won't go into the methodology too much, but each question basically translates to a score. They're mostly multiple choice. And then you add up the scores to come up with an overall probability that this individual's falling above or below a certain income level. And then you actually take all those scores and aggregate them up to sort of come up with the company's reach at the BOP. This is commonly used in the microfinance field, as the institutions are trying to target individuals of different income levels and then measure changes in time as they provide loans. The second one, the second survey that we implemented is more of a subjective survey trying to understand the perspectives and insights of the BOP populations. So we asked a range of questions, and those are just a couple of examples, but for example, we asked them to rate a series of services that they may or may not be receiving from ECOM, such as credits, agri inputs, training, in terms of how important they were. And then we asked another series of questions based upon knowing what services they were receiving around their perspective on ECOM's ability to impact their lives, on their satisfaction with their relationship with ECOM. And we actually asked some competitive questions as well. So if I go to the next slide. So these two tools we implemented with about 1,000 farmers in Nicaragua. ECOM obviously works all around the world. IFC has worked with ECOM in Asia, Africa, and Central America. But this pilot was done with coffee suppliers in Nicaragua. And then we tried to get a sample of different regions and different types of farmers so that we could actually disaggregate the data and look at how perspectives differed based upon different attributes. I'll actually, in a moment, I will probably refer to direct and indirect suppliers. So we actually also segmented farmers based upon the type of relationship. And direct farmers just means farmers that ECOM is working with directly, as opposed to indirect farmers who would typically go through intermediaries to supply ECOM. So in terms of the poverty scorecard, sort of the overall, or the main headline is that we found that among the farmers that we sampled, half of them were falling below Nicaragua's poverty line, and then over 90% of the ECOM farmers were actually falling below what IFC is sort of using as a benchmark for BOP, which is $8 purchasing power parity. So we knew, we assumed going in that we knew that ECOM farmers were small, and we assumed that they were predominantly BOP, but we didn't quite know to what extent. So this sort of gave us the data to actually support that assumption. Next, I'll just go into a couple of the some of the highlights we found around understanding the farmers' perceptions. ECOM has a very strong relationship with farmers. In particular, direct farmers, as opposed to indirect farmers, are highly satisfied with that relationship. That sort of speaks to a lot of the work that ECOM has done around providing technical system assistance and other support directly to these farmers who seem to really value and be quite aware of that support that they're receiving. Amongst the versus the competition, ECOM suppliers were much less dissatisfied than suppliers servicing some of their competitors. We also found some interesting sort of relationships based upon the type of relationship the farmers had with ECOM. So those who had more frequent contact with ECOM, or those who had a longer relationship with ECOM were even more satisfied. As I mentioned before, we tested a range of services, and we found that productivity enhancing services, top of the list being financing, followed by technical assistance such as farm visits and training, were in high demand. Farmers who were receiving these services tended to value them more. They were more likely to recommend ECOM to others, and they rated ECOM more highly on sort of their confidence of services. We also actually found a lot of differences, which I won't go into here, around different farmer types. So for example, we found that larger farmers, financing was even more a driver of the relationship for larger farmers. We found that farmers that have a less close relationship with ECOM tend to not receive services from others, so they had a greater demand across the board. In certain areas that are lower on this list for overall farmers were actually more important for smaller occasional farmers. And then finally, share of crop. We actually found that this influenced share of crop quite a bit. Farmers who are receiving these services, that actually translate into them selling more, selling more crop to ECOM. So for example, for financing, 19 percentage point increase in farmers selling at least half of their share of crop. So 19 more farmers out of 100 would sell over 50% of their crop if they're receiving financing versus those who are not. We thought it was interesting that market information, basically providing farmers with access to market prices, so they know when they go to the collection center what is the price of coffee on the market, was really influential in driving their perception of ECOM. So we'd actually tested farmers' experiences at the collection center around the price they were getting, the payment terms they were getting, and then I guess the friendliness of the personnel. And then particularly for price, we found that there are big differences in satisfaction in the price they're receiving if they just knew what the price was on the market. So that's sort of, you see some of the differences there on that chart. And the green is basically highly satisfied. So you can see on the left where it says received versus did not receive, there's a substantial difference. Also, interestingly, we found that a whole lot of farmers recounted to us that didn't actually, there were a number of farmers who actually identified market information as something they didn't have, particularly if they were working through other parties or had less of a close relationship with ECOM. So that seemed like a potential service gap. So I mentioned in the beginning we tested, we were trying to understand ECOM's relationship with the farmers, but we were also trying to understand farmer perspectives on ECOM's impact on their lives. So we actually asked a number of questions trying to measure this idea of well-being. And 4 key areas were confidence. So we asked each farmer to rate the statement, "I feel that ECOM gives me the best service and advice." We also asked them about how empowered they felt because of ECOM. "I feel capable of reaching my goals thanks to my relationship with ECOM." Income. "My income and standard of living have improved due to my relationship with ECOM." And then finally, voice. "I feel I'm part of ECOM by contributing to its success. I'm succeeding as well." So we found here that financing and market information had the largest influence on these perceptions of well-being. And then we also found that income was the most impacted. So receiving different services actually led to greater changes in perceptions of income. And then finally, we tried to tie everything back to various attributes that were important to ECOM. So we found that higher scores meant selling more crop back to ECOM. So just a very brief summary. As we said, most of the ECOM coffee farmers are at the BOP, so that's below $8 a day in purchasing power. ECOM has emphasized and really focused on developing strong value-added relationships, and this has translated into farmer satisfaction and loyalty. A couple of areas we found through this project, which were particularly important for farmers, and then we found some differences which may suggest opportunities to tailor different services or even messaging based on the size of the farmer or the type of supplier they are. And then finally, we found that ECOM is also having a positive impact on farmers' perceptions of their own well-being. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but this was sort of one point in time. These tools have been used in other fields over time to measure changes either in income or changes in sort of these subjective measures. So you can measure differences over time. So this is a potential sort of opportunity for ECOM moving forward to use over time to measure progress. This is my last slide. So just wanted to say, I mentioned in the beginning, we're actually doing a similar pilot with water health. We're using the poverty scorecard as well, and then we're using a slightly different tool. Again, for water health, we're trying to measure the income levels of the customers they're serving, and then trying to understand the value drivers through a sort of a subjective approach, trying to understand the value drivers for those who are purchasing or not purchasing water. And that one, we're actually trying 2 different communities, one that's a water health community and one that's not, and trying to understand things like accessibility, affordability, sort of understanding of the value of clean water and how that's driving different individuals' willingness to purchase from water health. So that's sort of the next pilot that we've been engaging in, but we see both from IAC's perspective and from our clients' perspective, there are opportunities across different sectors to start to continue to pilot and roll out some of these tools to really help us better understand the BOP population and substantiate the fact that we're having quite a significant reach among these business models. So now I'm going to turn it over to Roland from the Development Impact Unit to say some remarks from sort of the M&E perspective.
Actually, just a question to Teddy, since I know you have to leave before long. You want to say a few words before I do, or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I think it's relatively easy to say why this type of work is really important for IFC. I mean, after all, IFC tries to help improve living standards and reduce poverty, and to first of all understand what we are doing. Are we first of all reaching people at the base of the pyramid? And then ultimately, as we will have these surveys over time to see are they actually progressing out of poverty, is extremely important for us. And getting these perceptions of, in this case, the suppliers, in the case of water health, it's going to be the customers, is also really important to see, not just in terms of the income levels, but also in terms of the perception of these stakeholders, be it customers, suppliers, or other stakeholders. But for me, what is much more important is this is not just to satisfy the nerds in the ivory tower in Washington, but I really think that this can be a huge competitive advantage for companies like yours to actually know, are you reaching people at the base of the pyramid? I would imagine, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, that for example, particularly with the supply chains being much more transparent, that this could become into a huge comparative advantage for you. Or as I was talking to Sanjay about, knowing actually what clients particularly value about their supplies, again, is a huge comparative advantage. Why is this important, not just for us? It was very interesting to hear the panel discuss very much like IFC, and I think that's also why there is such a natural fit between inclusive business and IFC. We are working long-term with our clients. So understanding our clients, and for you then in turn understanding your clients and your stakeholders, is even more important than for our regular business. And so in that sense, we are planning to further roll out these tools like the poverty scorecards, as Alexis has said earlier. They were used very much in microfinance before, and we have done some work there. I was on the advisory panel for a bank doing SME financing, assessing the poverty level in the SMEs, and now we are getting to suppliers, customers, and so on. And not just because it's nice to know, but we really think that this can become a competitive advantage for us and for our clients to know what matters to these stakeholders. And so I'll end here, and maybe Teddy, I can ask you to say a few words, and maybe you also, Sanjay.
Can I actually ask a question that I just wanted to ask a question that maybe Teddy can answer during his remarks. I think that was a fabulous presentation, and I think we will stand to benefit from the results of these initiatives. During Alexis's presentation, she showed a comment from one of your customers where they felt they had a voice in the company. I'm extremely interested to know how your feedback loop works. How do you get the customers involved in the success of your venture? You know, what makes them say things like that?
Very well. Well, you have to see what's at what it brings us. Basically, with these customers, we have much higher productivity, we have much better quality, we have certified products, and this leads to being able to access the most demanding roasters as far as traceability and certification wise. So it opens a market. So not only does it bring better quality, better quantity, it brings better pricing. So automatically, all these small farmers become part of a cluster or part of a club. So every farmer knows that his coffee is going to a blend of a Swedish, you know, Swedish roaster, and everybody receives a recognition for being part of X or Y blend. So they're part of something, you see what I mean? So everybody knows where their coffee ends up. And with the coffee boom we've had the past few years, you know that Starbucks has its clubs of suppliers, Nespresso has a club of suppliers, and they really want the farmers to feel part of their company. So we're just in the middle representing them, you know. So it's been, everybody's winning tremendously. The market, the roasters get a fantastic marketing story. We get to increase our volume without extra efforts because we double our volume with all these people. What I didn't like is that at the bottom of the things that they appreciate the most are the new varieties. We have brought new varieties of coffee, which doubled their production compared to any other varieties, and they only put 12% that they appreciate. So they didn't realize yet. They didn't realize how important it is to have better genetic material to work with. But anyway, so for us, it's the best win-win-win that you can imagine. We're replicating this model. I was discussing with our friend in Nigeria over there. We have similar models for cocoa farmers in Nigeria, where obviously we're not as advanced as we are in Nicaragua, but everywhere in the world we are taking this model to try to replicate it. Okay, well, thank you very much. As you said, unfortunately I have to leave for lunch, and you know, punctuality here is that you have to be there 5 minutes ahead of time, so I have to take off. Thank you very much. A pleasure to being with you this morning. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teddy. I think we are actually just about done in terms of time. But just like with the previous presentation, both Alexis and I will be there at lunch. And so if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Let me just say one more thing that's actually about this. We've done a pilot with ECOM, and then we're doing the pilot with the Sanjay's WHI. But we want to do more. And then of course, as you didn't ask these questions about how much it will cost to do this. We're trying to drive down the cost of do this, and so that actually you have, you can actually manage this. And then, it's basically, I see it from the perspective, IFC as, yes, this is actually measurement of development impact on the farmers or customer perception, but from your perspective, it has to be useful for your business. So I see it as a customer survey or supplier survey, which actually have the information that feeds into your business and how you actually, it's the information you can use to, improve your business. So, and it should pay for your money. So initially when we're designing, we have a little bit of the, the support to actually, to help the design stage. But eventually, my dream is that you can actually do it as a part of your business and keep doing it. And because it's the beauty of this thing is if you keep doing it in the different timing points, you can see the difference in the trend. And that, so this one, I would say right now, we're still one pilot is probably trying to contain that below the $50,000 a piece. But if you just upfront, you manage the upfront designing stage, I think you can drive it down at $30,000 a piece or lower. So that's the kind of ballpark number, and this is to do it with the 1,000 farmers and complete a survey.
I would actually say the poverty scorecard alone, because it's essentially just asking 10 questions. Those 10 questions, of course, are derived with lots of statistical analysis from household surveys. But those 10 questions one can reasonably easily just build into your business processes, like applications or things like that. And that will provide you with a very accurate picture of the profile of either your customers or your suppliers and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more comment. When IFC first approached us with this proposal, we were very excited because we have a process in place of selecting the locations for these water health centers, and we do a fairly comprehensive survey ourselves before we make a commitment to a particular community to test the economic viability, etc. But what we are looking forward to perhaps doing with the poverty scorecard and the data that's being gathered is maybe extend this a little bit and make it part of our entire evaluation process, so that we may have a fairly standard way of looking at these communities before we actually go in. So if I were to conduct this kind of data collection prior to us going in, that would help standardize our PIR, the process a little bit. So we're looking forward to the results and seeing how we can actually do something different with it.
Has been a very good cooperation there also. Tom?
Sorry, I just had one comment, and that is related to this and what you were saying, Sanjay. One of the things we're piloting in India is using the geomapping tool. So basically what we've done is we've mapped, you can visually map where the projects are and where their economic activities are, their branches and so forth. And then we've backed that into, we've got a data supply company that have mapped down to the district level various demographic pieces of information about the profiles of the people. So you can know their literacy levels, their health indicators and things like that. And the idea is we're still in the pilot stage, but in about 2 months, we'll be able to offer this to our clients. So we tested it the other day with a fertilizer company, for example, that was selling to different districts. And they said that their most important driver for consumption of the fertilizer was literacy levels of the farmers. So with this tool, they were able to see at the district level what the literacy was, and that was extremely useful market information. So for those of you working in the India market, we'll come back to you shortly on using this. I know they've used the tool, but I don't know if they've backed it up against the market demographic data.
Actually no demographic information in Africa. It's a lot of communities are doing it just
WBI has mapped their projects. I don't know if they've compared it to the underlying demographic information. It really depends on how data rich those markets are, but it's something we can pass on to our colleagues. Thanks.
It's actually always a challenge to get the demographic detail there in Africa. But there are some of the data with the World Bank. Anyway, actually, I think we're kind of running late, and we're standing between you and the lunch. So I think we should conclude. And before I hand it over to the master of ceremony, we're going to be resuming at 2 o'clock, and we're going to start at 2 sharp. And then there will be very interesting presentations by the Japanese companies who are actually working on the BOPs in the overseas. So I would suggest you come back like 5 to 3 minutes before 2, and then we're going to start at 2 sharp. And then let me thank Alexis and Laurent on this session. Mary?
Thank you very much, Roland and Alexis. So now we will take a break for lunch. Lunch for participants is prepared at Room Mai, just next to this venue. If you need a vegetarian entree, please tell the IFC staff. At lunch, we will show for the first time a video produced by Inclusive Business team. Title of the video is Faces of Inclusive Business. So I look forward to seeing you all again here at this afternoon. Please submit the evaluation sheet at the reception desk in case you are leaving at this time. Thank you.
have the